Now some of you probably already noticed that the status bar look a bit different. Now there is some new features added, but there's also some existing commands that clients ask to have in the status bar. Now the first set of commands here at the bottom is exactly the same as with your scope toolbar at the top. That controls the visibility of the object, so you can switch on and off your lines, the visibility, the text, the hatching, the dimensions. And remember earlier I also mentioned to you that in your object properties, now I can see my dimensions is hidden at the moment, so I can switch it back on in my object properties as well. So that's just a shortcut for the scope toolbar as well as my object property settings. Then next to it is, I'm just going to use a different drawing. With this drawing I've got two viewports. So if I go to my sheet 1, I've got one viewport scale 1 and 50, one viewport scale 1 and 100. So I know that this dimension set is a dimension with two annotation scales added to the dimension. So if I'm going to toggle now between the 1 and 100 and the 1 and 50, it gives me my presentation of that particular scale. So this is not something new. You actually had it from the beginning, but instead of toggle in your object properties to display the annotation finishes, now you have it in your status bar. So just make it a bit more visible here at the bottom. Next to it is what we call object highlighting. Now that's just a shortcut, as if you go to configure, selected, highlighted, marked and visual objects. So by default with the installation it's switched off. So if I want to highlight objects when no command is active, I can switch it on. Highlight objects when command is active. I'm going to say OK. So at the bottom, as you can see, it's hidden or it's switched off at the moment. So I can just left click, now it's active. So if I move my pointer over an object, now you will see it will highlight it. Now that one advantage is like in this case, you can see it's one continuous line. It's not two single individual lines. So that's the advantage of making use of highlighting of an object. So left click, you turn it on and off. Right click is to configure it. Next to it, a very nice new feature in Caddie 26, and that is how you can set your own drawing mode. Now for clients that particularly use only 2D, they will love this one, because now you can set up your own drawing mode. If I set it to 3D free, that means I can orbit my drawing. As you can see, I can orbit my drawing, and because it's in a 3D environment. But if you know you only want to work in a 2D environment, what you can do is you're going to go and change it to 2D drawing. What happens now is it gives you a top view, and it doesn't allow you to orbit at all. As you can see, left click with my mouse with my shift button, it doesn't allow you to orbit at all, because there's a setting that you can set. So if you're going to right click, you can configure your drawing modes. Now the 2D drawing, that's the one I've just explained to you. As you can see, my 3D orbit is disabled. My 3D 2D projection, 2D based. My project onto, that will be on my UCS, that will be on my world, and my UCS will be free. So my UCS cannot follow my line or my dimension or my text. If I go to my 3D free, as you can see, now my 3D orbit will be enabled. My 3D 2D projection will be 3D based. My project onto my plane and my UCS will follow. So Caddie will give you 4 samples, and then I'm going to show you later on how to create your own environment or your own mode that you can set it up for yourself. So that's definitely something new in Caddie 26. Then next to it is your 3D orbit. So if I right click, I can make use of my constraint orbit. That's if you don't want to make use of the shift and the left button of your mouse. And then the next one is your normal 2D 3D tag. So what means if it's set to 2D, my points will be projected onto my UCS. If I left click, you change it to 3D, and my 3D points will not be projected onto my UCS. Then you will see that at the bottom you still have your what we call my pointer command line settings. So you can disable your pointer command line, you can enable your mouse over object properties, and you can configure your mouse over object properties. That is default. That's what we had in Caddie 25 as well. Then there's a new one added, and that's your auto snap. At the moment it's off. So if I left click, as look at my pointer, that is my preview of auto snap. And if I left click, now it's back to freehand. That's if you don't want to make use of S for snap, for auto snap, and F for freehand.